Hey everyone, Recruiter Ed here. Greetings from sunny Charleston, South Carolina. We are actually on vacation, visiting some family for the past couple of days. And so if I look a little bit different than how you would normally be used to seeing me, it's because we're very relaxed and having a wonderful time. So coming to you from the hotel room today. Today's topic will be a little bit of a longer form video. It's not going to be one of the short truncated ones that I have a lot of to provide. This is going to be a little bit of a longer tailed conversation. It is based off of and comes out of the recent layoffs, the massive waves of layoffs, especially in the big tech industry, especially in Silicon Valley. I believe as of June 2023, which is when we're filming this right now, we are up to 250,000 people, give or take, that are laid off in big tech. But this really applies to anyone. So today's topic will be for the candidates out there. What do you do when you are laid off? And what are your next steps? What is going to happen? And what should be going through your head, or hopefully is going through your head, and hope to provide some advice, some calming words of wisdom if you find yourself in that situation. So the first thing to do, if you have unfortunately been laid off, is to take a deep breath and try to just calm and center yourself. I know it's a big ask of you, and I know it's easier said than done. Oddly enough, I took this question to a lot of the people that I work with, a lot of the fellow subject matter experts in the HR and hiring space, a lot of business owners, small business owners. I talked to them, and I surveyed a few people over the last couple of weeks, and I said, what do you do if you've been laid off? And to a T, every single one of them said, take a beat, take a breath. Realize that while it might feel like the end of the world, or it might come as a shock or a relief or any other myriad of emotions, take a time, a second, a minute, a day to feel those emotions, to feel the way you feel, and to process that. Not forever, but a bit of time. And you deserve that. If you kind of stay in your feelings forever, you won't make forward progress. You won't find the next thing. But if you don't allow yourself to process what you've just been through, it might hurt your performance later on. It might hurt any aspect of your lives. So feel the way you feel, take a breath, breathe, center yourself, and then move onward and upward. So the second piece of advice, if you have unfortunately been laid off, is to network. Now, you might be aware of a very popular adage that has been promoted by wonderful brands such as HubSpot and older LinkedIn articles, some research publications, that 85% of jobs are obtained through networking, and that 70% of job postings aren't even listed on job boards. There was a recent LinkedIn article by a labor researcher who put a little dent in that figure. It looks like through referral processes, there's anywhere from only 13 to 25% of jobs that are obtained purely through networking. However, it's never a bad idea to have friends. It's never a bad idea, as tough as it may seem or feel, to let your network know that you are in between jobs. It's never a bad idea to see what's out there. Perhaps someone has already left a company. They're like, oh yeah, but they treated me well. I just had to move. Or perhaps someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone. It never will hurt you to network. You don't have to necessarily fire off all of the signal flares and say, I've been laid off, there's an issue. But it's never an issue, or it's never a waste of time, rather, to get out there. And as an old mentor always said, put your open for business sign out there. Just kind of mentally get in that space. So it is beneficial to network. It is beneficial to see which one of your friends and former coworkers, who's working where, who's doing what. I always like to keep track of that every single year on a cyclical nature, just so I know. Being a recruiter for almost a decade, part of my value is being able to even just suggest people and kind of be a go-between. Whether I get anything out of it or not, it's doing the right thing. Conversely, if you are a candidate, it's never a waste of time to just learn who's doing what. When's the last time you caught up with an old friend? They might have something, they might not. You've got the time now to figure that out, to reconnect with these people. Again, even if it only results in a direct job, let's say 25% of the time, it's a great start. It's a great step 2 after catching your breath and internalizing and feeling the way you feel and then moving onward and upward. Step 2 is a wonderful way to just kind of get that ball rolling with your own network that you've spent years developing. So step 3, if you have unfortunately been laid off, would be to understand the numbers. Quite often I mentor people of all levels of expertise, and they say, well, Ed, I'm having a real tough time trying to find a job, and I've applied to 10 places, or I've applied to 100 places. It's not enough. You need to understand the law of large numbers that you're working with, especially for the larger companies. I applied to 2 jobs at Google, or 2 jobs at Meta, Facebook, or 2 jobs at Apple, and they didn't hire me yet. It's not nearly enough. They see millions of applicants a year, and there are millions and millions, understandably, people who are looking for a job at any one given time. So you have to understand the numbers, and this is what I counsel almost every single candidate that I speak with, and I feel like it gets them a little bit down in the dumps sometimes, but it's true, and it's the harsh reality that I hope everyone understands. So if you look at the law of large numbers, imagine that half of every action that you take towards getting hired will be successful. So imagine that only half of your applications will be looked at. So if you apply to 100 places, your resume will actually only be seen 50 times. Imagine that half of those times you might be put on a short list of a recruiter going to call you. So that's 25 times. Imagine then that you only are going to actually get called by that recruiter 12 and a half times. So let's just be pessimistic, say 12. Imagine that recruiter thinks, hey, you've got what it takes for this position. I may not be an expert, but I know my company, and I think you'd be a fit. Half of those times, so let's say that's 6 times. You have an initial conversation with the actual hiring team 6 times. It only goes well half of those times. That's 3 times, and going to the next step there, which would be typically the final interview, an on-site interview or a video with the whole entire team or a panel interview. Usually there's some much larger final interview, and you're only going into that 3 times. That means you're maybe only going to get 1 job, maybe. So when people say, oh, I've applied to 100 places, I usually tell them, do it again. It's not enough. And people are like, wow, you're being so pessimistic. The law of large numbers is both on your side, in that you have a myriad of options to choose from, and not on your side, in that you have to do a lot of applications. And yes, I know that some of them require you to submit your resume and then retype the entire thing into individual fields. And don't get me started on that. I consult with a lot of companies teaching them why they should never do that, and so on and so forth. I know that applying to positions can almost be a full-time job in and of itself. But please don't apply to 12 places, 24 places, and think, well, I'll get a job. So many people do that and think that there's something wrong with them. And it's really just that the numbers, the way the working world works, that is not on your side. Instead, take that opportunity to be motivated. Hey, I got a lot of options. And if I know that I've done my work and I've, as I call it, because I don't like vegetables, if I call it eating my vegetables, I've eaten my vegetables, I have applied to 200 places, 300 places, I feel much more confident that I will have options to choose from for my next position. So, step number 3, I think we're at 2 now, is to understand the numbers that are both in your favor and not in your favor. All right, so the 4th step, and I checked my notes, we're at step number 4 now. My apologies for getting confused. But the 4th step is to realize the possible silver lining in your situation. I know if you've been recently laid off, that it's not going to feel like there's any silver linings, and you might say, shut up, Ed. Totally understandable. That's totally fine. I will mention that, there's about 2 times in my decade and a half of working and, in my almost decade of being in the staffing world where I was unfortunately downsized. And you know what? It actually benefited me in the long run. As, annoyingly positive as that may sound. I've worked for large firms, I've worked for small places, I've worked within the DoD and in the intelligence community, I've worked as, a lead recruiter at a FANG company, so biggest of the big tech, and there are times where I have been laid off, and, 2 times now, but both of those times that I was downsized, it ended up a short time period later where I was working at a great environment, a place where I learned even more, made more money, had better benefits. So sometimes this is kind of a helpful shove out the door, if you will. You won't see those results right away, and I doubt that everything would be so perfect that you would be thanking your manager years from now, the one who laid you off. But you never know. And if you do keep a modicum of positivity, then I do truly believe in my heart of hearts that you will find that positivity. You will find that silver lining. And, my best wishes is that, a year from now, 2 years from now, you'll kind of just be able to laugh at it and say, hey, yeah, that did suck when I was laid off. But you know what? I'm great now. I'm still amazing. So, Recruiter Ed here saying you are amazing. Never forget that. That's the most important part. And you will get through this. So I hope that the 4 tips, the take a breath, the network, the understanding the numbers, and to recognizing the possible silver linings that are out there, those 4 steps, I hope you find those helpful for finding your next position. Remember, you've got this. I believe in you.